Are you ready to take off but feel weighed down? Just like a plane can't soar with too much baggage, we can't grow when we're carrying fear and unforgiveness. That's where Fear and Forgiveness, a 16-day devotional and fasting journal, comes in. This book was created to help you release what's holding you back and move forward. Whether you use it as a standalone devotional or pair it with fasting, these 16 days will transform your heart, mind, and spirit. It's time to let go and rise higher. Grab your copy of Fear and Forgiveness today at barnesandnoble.com. Welcome to the G.L.O.E podcast, where we talk all things God, life, the ups and downs, organization, because chaos is not cute, and entrepreneurship, aka chasing those dreams. Here, we glow boldly and live purposefully. I'm your host, Angel, and around here, we keep it real, mixing faith, strategy, and a few laughs along the way. Whether you're trying to get your business together, organize your life, or just need a little motivation, you're in the right place. If you've been hanging around for a while, welcome back, and I hope you bought a friend. If you're new here, welcome. Get comfy and stay a while. Today, I am talking with Lindsey Wagnon. Lindsey operates a boutique marketing agency in Charlotte, North Carolina that focuses on helping female-led small businesses launch and scale. She has been in ministry leadership, carrying worship leader and women's discipleship roles for as long as she can remember, and is a pastor's wife. Lindsey is the proud mom of two girls ages 8 and 4. When she's not reading Google Analytics reports and fine-tuning sales funnels, you can find her running with her endlessly energized Australian Shepherd puppy, listening to true crime podcasts, and pretending to have a green thumb in the backyard garden. Everyone, let's welcome Lindsey. Hi, Lindsey. How are you?
Angel, I'm great. I'm so happy to be on the show.
I am so happy to have you. So everyone, I was on Lindsey's show, Savvy Startup Marketer, on May 1st. So make sure you check out that episode. I will link it into the show notes. And Lindsey and I met through the group that I co-founded, the Podcast Hub, and we're doing podcast swaps. So here she is today. And is there anything else you'd like to share before we get started?
I think that pretty much covered it, except now my oldest daughter actually just turned 9. I should have put that because that's very important to her.
Yes.
Like when we're that young, every birthday is a big, big deal. Every new age is a big deal.
I get it. Yes, I have a 9-year-old son, so it is very, very important to get those details correct. He'll be turning 10 in October. So he's like, soon I'll be in the double digits, and then everyone in the house will be in double digits. I'm like,
that is exactly how my daughter, yes. That's happening. She's like, next year is 10. I'm like, can we get to 9 first? Can we just have your 9?
Right. Like, can we just please enjoy this moment and deal with this, and then we'll get there. And then I'll like refer to him. I'll be like, oh, you're my baby. I'm not a baby. I'm a big boy.
Yes.
I'm aware that you're a big boy, but you're still my baby. No, I'm not a baby, mom. Okay, fine. Then he's like, can you open my water bottle for me?
I know. I thought you weren't a baby. I thought you
Right.
did these things by yourself.
Yeah, big boys can open their own water bottle. So how about that?
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness, kids! I tell you, they're a mess. Okay, what's the dog's name, and how old is the dog?
His name is Rocky. We let our oldest name him because she begged for a year before we finally broke down and got him. He's a year and a half now, and he's also a mess. He is purebred Australian Shepherd, and I knew he was going to be high energy. I have seen that Australian Shepherds are like out of their minds for the first 3 years. And then somehow magically, when they hit year 3, they just turn into the world's best dog. So I am very hopeful.
Interesting.
And he actually already is a whole lot better than a year ago. Thank goodness.
Dogs they're a lot of work. They really are. Yes. So Lindsey, so you said that you are a recovering perfectionist. How do you know you're a recovering perfectionist? And what is it like to be one?
Oh goodness, that's a loaded question with a loaded answer. Okay, so I guess I identified that I am a perfectionist because of the personality tests I've taken have blatantly told me.
Okay, well, that's wonderful.
So we'll start there. If you're familiar with the Enneagram, like I'm a 1 through and through, and Myers-Briggs, I think, is like ISTJ, and that's a very serious, like logical type of personality. I
Mhm.
can't remember the other ones, but yeah, so I don't know exactly when it was it kind of dawned on me, probably like my late 20s, where I just realized like, wow, I guess I am kind of in that perfectionist lane. And along with that, that sounds like a negative, but it doesn't have to be. Along with that, that usually includes like somebody who's very logical, somebody who's very responsible, somebody who's going to sit back and think things through. So there are positives to that perfectionist personality as long as it's balanced out. And recovering has kind of been more like, okay, let's embrace like the good positive things that my type of wiring can bring to a scenario, but also recognize areas where the expectations can get way too high, especially expectations on myself. Um, and then like recognizing that if I'm putting really high expectations on myself, I am also probably putting super high expectations on people around me, which it that can drain a relationship, and it can be a hurdle that just gets in the way of so many things. Especially in like a teamwork environment where you're trying to work with people, but you feel like, gosh, this is, none of us are meeting the expectation or I'm being held back. Um, so yeah, I think in having to um, be in work environments where I'm working with people and having to really process through my expectations at many times not being met, I just realized this perfectionism thing is just going to be something that is either going to get in the way or I'm going to own it and maybe start on a path of like balancing out a little bit better. Um, and so from there, I feel like balancing out has really looked like acceptance
Mhm.
and understanding that I don't necessarily have to meet the highest bar possible to be accepted, mainly by God, of course. So it also intertwines with faith and spiritual maturity to recognize that perfectionism isn't the goal. Like my relationship with God is the goal. And if that's the goal, then I don't have to earn and achieve to keep meeting that goal because he does already accept me. Um Faults and all, weaknesses and all, like gaps in even like skills and misses and all. And then I think it becomes an acceptance of yourself and all of those things as well. So hopefully over time I have um definitely relaxed, I'd say, around a lot of the perfectionist mindset, the striving mindset, the having to have it all together, the having to be um, impressive. And, that looking like, okay, it's really, really good to want to do your best, but there's a difference in wanting to do your best and trying to impress God or trying to have favor with him, which he's already giving, and then other people as well, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. And I know that like you've had a lot of leadership positions. So do you feel like being a perfectionist hindered you in those leadership positions, or is that kind of how you learn to find your balance with being a perfectionist?
Yeah, I'd say both. I, I think earlier on, as I was learning how to lead and work with people, it did create tensions with myself and the people that I would try to lead or work with on a team, because when you have that like kind of high bar for yourself, and then you start to realize not everybody is made that way. Not
Right.
everybody has this like high achieving um mindset or wiring about them. And at first, I'd say like more so in my early career days, I'm like butting heads with people because they're not meeting my expectations. And that means they're not operating in a way that I would. But over time, I had to realize, well, they're not me. And they have their own way of doing things. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just
Right.
because, somebody's not doing something the way that, you would yourself. So I think it did for a while um, play into some, hard relationships with certain people that I can look back now on and be like, man, if it were now, I would definitely have handled that differently. For sure. And, you know, even created like situations where we had to either choose to talk through something, see more eye to eye on something, um, or I do think that it helped me a lot to recognize like, okay, just with some patience and with some reflection, um, I can have more understanding about what's really going on here and also confront the fact that some of this is some of this tension is because of my own high expectations and my own even naivete, I guess how do you say that?
Uh,
Naiveness?
we'll go with naiveness. Yeah.
Yeah, my own naive understanding or lack of understanding around the way different people operate. I think that was a big lesson early on for me in leadership is like not everybody operates the same way and it doesn't make it wrong. But I think over time I've hopefully been able to recognize that and even embrace other people's strengths and see that first rather than seeing the shortcomings more quickly. Um, yeah, so that has been definitely a journey. And sometimes when you look back on, decisions that you made in the way that you were earlier in career life, adulthood, you're just like, oh my goodness. If I only knew. And then you understand why the people a couple, years older or even a couple decades older are just looking at you like, oh honey.
Yeah. Just wait. Yes.
Just wait. You're gonna be looking back in 20 years and thinking, oh man, I was rigid,
Right. Yeah. It's like, ooh, why did I do
I
that?
was really
Why was I like that?
unforgiving. Yeah.
Yeah. Did anyone that was ever under your leadership, like, were you ever close enough with anyone that they kind of came to you and was like, "Hey, Lindsay, like, you need to pipe down some. You're doing too much. Like, let's calm down." Or was it something that you just kind of figured out on your
I had one friend. This wasn't so much like a leadership scenario, but it
own?
did help a lot that I had one friend in college who one time came to me and did help me understand that, hey, you have this expectation gap. You are expecting like our friend group to kind of operate a certain way. And at the same time, you're not making that known and you're not communicating that. And you're getting offended and we don't know why.
Ah,
So that was a really good just friend heart to heart like truth bomb that I feel like was very helpful for me at that age, realizing you've got expectations but that you're not communicating. And that is for sure um a perfectionist tendency and probably was one of the first big aha moments where I was like, ouch, that stung. But that was also so true. No, and I recognized it pretty quickly. I was like, she is really spot on there. And after that, if there was, tension with somebody, I think it more so played out where I would I don't like I cannot stand confrontation. I don't like having tension. It really eats at me. And especially earlier on when, I'm trying to figure out like what is the problem here when I was more naive and blind to my blind spots.
Mhm.
And so at that point, if there was any kind of rub with somebody, I could sense it and I couldn't let it go until it was dealt with. Even though that meant having to be like, okay, what happened here? What's
Yeah.
going on here? What's wrong? I don't want to hear that I'm the problem, but I also don't want to be sitting up at night wondering, this other person is mad at me and why. When things seem off, like I feel it all the way. And I did, I think, learn to just, we're gonna have to get this aired out. We're gonna have to figure out what's going on here. And so yeah, I don't remember anybody necessarily saying anything super direct to me, um, like after college age.
Okay.
Other than my husband is very direct,
Yeah.
but he and I are very similar in our approaches in leadership. And he he would sometimes mention things like, well, you have to be careful about doing this or that or whatever. But honestly, more so, we would have a similar tendency in how we approach leadership. And then we would have to talk to each other and figure out, like, what are we collectively missing here? Or did we come on too strong in that one scenario? And usually he was the one who has more of a um strong, like direct personality, but I would have the same, similar type of mindset, only my approach would be more passive for sure. So it's
Okay.
like, we come off a little bit different in personalities, but we are both thinking the same thing.
Okay. Got you.
We're both tracking the same way. And he and I, we met because we both jumped into leadership of this young adult group together at the same time. And we ended up from that point, building and developing worship teams together over several years. So we have not at any point in our marriage not been in some level of leadership together. So
Okay.
he and I have definitely, I think, learned and grown and developed and hopefully improved together, almost like on the same track. So, what was the most helpful for me was being able to debrief with him in a very safe space and conversation and be like, what is wrong with that person? And then both of us talk about it and then think, okay, well, there's some things we can own here on our part, and then learn from that and go forward.
Did you already know you're going to be a pastor's wife, or did it come
Oh
after?
gosh, no. Oh my goodness. I feel like, yeah. Also, it's so cliche and I don't want it to be cliche, but I actually am kind of the traditional pastor's wife mold on the surface
Mhm.
because I do sing and play piano over here. And I'm just
Oh my
like,
goodness.
here I am, like, been in church my whole life, been in ministry circles my whole life, done lots of ministry leadership even before college. And in college, I ended up my senior year leading the women's ministry in a 500-person campus crusade for Christ group. So I'm like, look at me. Also, I play piano and I sing. I try really hard, like, not to, feel like I have to embrace all of that.
Do you put the girls in matching dresses on Sundays for church?
No, I do not.
Okay, I was just wondering. I was gonna say you are definitely the cliche. If every Sunday they are in matching dresses with matching bows and matching hairstyles, stay there.
Unfortunately, the cliche definitely stops with that because my kids, we um often are there so early that my kids are, it's like it's a good we're doing good if they are actually dressed in a normal outfit. My youngest one has waist length hair, like wild knotted hair, and I'm frantically sitting there as like the worship team is rehearsing, trying to brush through her hair and like, pull it back away. That's how we show up to church.
Listen, it's you're there.
Yeah.
That's what matters. You showed up, so
Right.
you showed up. God said, "Come as you are." So
Right.
he doesn't care that her hair is a little knotted and a little matted and needs to be brushed out. He's just happy that you're there. Oh, so how do you build space and balance into your day to like balance all of this? A podcast host, a pastor's wife, your leadership, your kids, just everything.
Mm. Okay. So my biggest balance shift was a big change. And I was working in corporate job, climbing the corporate ladder. And this was around the time I had my first daughter. And with my husband being at that point, he was not a campus pastor at a church yet, but he had been on staff with this church for, I think, about 5 years at that point. And so had the church schedule. I was also, at that point volunteering on the worship team as I am now. But at that point, the worship schedule was a lot more intense because this was pre COVID. And we were doing more services than we are now. And so our weekends were very church and ministry heavy. And then I would go from Monday to Friday to a typical like 9 to 5 office job, which I really enjoyed that job. I, had great success there. I moved up pretty quickly within the 5 years that I was there, was really loving leading teams and doing a lot of things that are totally in my element. But I was really struggling with the fact that I never had a day off with my husband and my daughter. His day off was always Fridays, and he would be taking her and doing really fun things with her, um, and sending pictures to me. And I'm in the office. And then when we would, have a weekend, we never really did a whole day together because we were actually doing like Saturday evening services at the time. I was showing up if I was singing on the worship team in the middle of the day to start rehearsing. And then we would do, most of the day Sunday as well. So it didn't take long before I was like, I cannot maintain this schedule. This is nuts. And of course, our oldest was really young and
Hmm.
the most needy of her life. I'm trying to figure out how to be a mom, how to care for this little baby, then toddler, and how to maintain like energy at the 9 to 5, and do church all weekend. So my biggest switch at that point was like, I think that I am not going to be able to do corporate because it just is not lining up. And in my heart, my biggest priority for us is ministry. That's, the thing that I have known and am the closest to. So that was my choice. And so I launched my own agency in 2019, left corporate, and man, was I relieved. I was definitely sad to leave the job and the people there, and I still have a great relationship with them. But I was like, yes, this is a new beginning for me, and I cannot wait. Well, then I got super busy immediately with a bunch of clients, which, as we know in entrepreneur world, is like a whole other test of your time.
Right. Right.
Because then of course I'm responsible for the whole thing and it's a traded crazy for crazy. But um I have started now to really embrace lifestyle planning over just your typical like calendaring of trying to fit in all of the tasks and responsibilities. For me, that looks like I actually created my own resource And I call it the perfect day planner. And a couple times a year, I look at that and I basically do some deep thinking because it kind of walks through questions that I've picked up from other people that they have said that they ask themselves about time management and stuff, but then also some questions that really just relate to me and my ministry heavy lifestyle. And I will kind of do a reevaluation of where am I actually spending my time? And if I could create my perfect weekly rhythms, what would it look like? And that has to include, being at church for the bulk of Sunday. And it has to include the fact that my husband is off on Fridays. So that's kind of like Friday, Saturday is kind of our weekend. And, my daughter's preschool schedule, my older daughter's elementary school schedule. And so I will go through that a couple times a year. In fact, I'm kind of due for it again because coming into summer, everything shifts.
Oh, yeah.
And I will just write down, here's what the day would look like Sunday to Saturday. Each day is a little different. I have tried to make like the weekdays kind of mirror each other and I can't make it work.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's why it just has to be very flexible and every day has to have its mix of this is what it looks like for us, you know, week after week, but also here's what I can do on these particular days to like make sure I stay caught up, make sure I stay rested. Like Mondays have never been able to be a heavy work day for me. I just cannot make it work because we come out of Sundays and we're tired. Like
Right.
Mondays are probably my most drained day of the week where so many people because of their life rhythms will say that about more like Friday. Like they're coming to the end of the week lower in energy. For me, it's a weird opposite. It's like I start the week at my lowest energy level and I've had to make Mondays like a regroup, recover, and then I actually build up to where I'm almost more productive at the end of the week than the beginning of the week. So that's how I've been able to work it out. And I do feel like I really enjoy the rhythms that I've learned work for me now.
Okay. Yeah, you have to figure out what works for you. And that's really cool that you figured out like when your high energy is and when like your low energy is. I've still yet to kind of figure that out. I just feel like it kind of shifts from week to week. Like there's sometimes, well, probably never on a Monday, but there's sometimes on Tuesday where I'm like, woohoo, I'm just like a big burst of energy and I'm going to get so much done. And then the other days where I'm like, yeah, nothing is happening today. It also depends on like what else is going on that day in particular. So we're recording in May. So yesterday was Tuesday. Our son had something going on at his school. I had to be at school at 1:45 for that. And I had to be to work at 2. Then he has soccer practice at 6. After I dropped him off at school, I came back home and I just lay back down. So I set my alarm and I hit snooze like once. And but I was like, I need to get up and
Yeah.
kind of do stuff. And I just kind of felt drained and just like blah. And I don't want to say I hate what happens, but like when I have those mornings where I'm just like, I need to rest and I need to rejuvenate, and then I'll rest and then I get up and I have time in between before I go to work and I
Mhm.
start doing something, then I get in the zone and I'm like, ooh, now I don't want to stop what I'm doing. And so it's just a whole mixture of bundles and everything. So I get it. You
Yeah.
have to find that sweet spot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, this also aligns with perfectionist recovery. I have just had to embrace the fact that I'm not going to have a templated week. It's just
Hmm.
not going to happen. Like maybe at some point after my girls are older, that is something that I can make work a little bit better. But man, I have had to really be open handed with here's the schedule that works for me. And whatever society says is the schedule that's supposed to work, it's just not gonna.
No.
It just doesn't. Like, I have to be okay with that.
Life gets messy, life, and it doesn't look like what everyone, it's not a Pinterest board. We're not 1950s housewives here. Like
Yes, so
we are,
true.
it is what it is. So that's where we're at.
Mhm.
Yes. So Lindsay, before we go, tell us about your podcast.
My podcast started early 2024 and it's called Savvy Startup Marketer. So, if you want marketing pro tips from somebody who's been doing it for 20 years,
Forever.
I love to mostly kind of target or lean in on what I feel like somebody who's in the first 3 years of business needs to know that is the most important for sales and marketing. And then, talk about like definitely options that are the most affordable for somebody who's bootstrapping a business, how to launch strong, how to build a good foundation. And a lot of my topics are chosen because I, in real time, are working with clients who are usually a little bit further along than that. And we are doing damage control, frankly. Like a lot of my client partnerships with my agency are doing the hard work of undoing some mistakes, some major disorganization, as you are familiar with,
Yeah.
and just following honestly bad advice, and just kind of doing things lopsided in the early years. So I am very passionate about helping particularly women entrepreneurs not make those mistakes, do things clean and affordably and more simply in the early years so that they can build a business that's manageable and build a business on sales, marketing principles and best practices that are proven and not so risky, not so like investment heavy, and then be able to scale from there and get to like year 5, 6, and 7 feeling like they have something to build on and not undo and completely redo. So, yeah, I am very passionate about that and I've got a lot of guests. I've had you come on
Yeah.
recently. The guests that I bring on have had the best nuggets as well about owning businesses, about their own, ups and downs with entrepreneurship. So, I love the marketing side of things, but I also just want women who are, starting out to be inspired by other women who are at the same place as them. This is not like I am, the big shot who has, made it, quote
Right.
unquote, who is like just, trying to remember what it was like to be at your place. No, we are at your place.
Okay. I love that.
We are doing the daily struggle of building businesses and learning along the way. And that is what Savvy Startup Marketer is all about.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Y'all make sure y'all check out Lindsay's podcast. As she said, I was a guest on it. It's a great show. I enjoy it. Lindsay, where can everyone find you at? How can they connect with you?
They can find me at lindseywagnon.com, and that is Lindsay with an E.
Yes.
Very important.
Yes, very.
Um, and they can also find me on Instagram at Lindsey Wagnon Marketing.
Okay, awesome. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for being a guest on here. I have enjoyed talking to you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Angel. You too.
Thank you. That's it for today's episode of the G.L.O.E podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're walking away with something that fuels your journey. And remember, glow boldly, live purposefully, and I'll talk to you next time. Y'all know I run on coffee, and so does the show. If you want to keep the episodes flowing, head over to buymeacoffee.com/themodcosc. Whether it's a one-time boost or a monthly support, every cup helps keep this podcast going.